Hello, welcome to my class. I am Pamela Jasmine. Today I am going to teach history, the Second World War. First of all, we have to discuss the causes that led to Second World War. First cause, dissatisfaction with the Treaty of Versailles. The Treaty of Versailles, by which the First World War came to an end, created more problems than it solved. The First World War came to an end with the Treaty of Versailles. But this treaty created more problems, many problems than it solved. That means the treaty solved many problems, but it created more and more problems. The treaty demanded annexation of German territories and creation of many states. According to the treaty, German territories should be annexed. So the powerful nations annexed German territories and they made many states. This sowed the seeds of bitterness and conflict. Then Germany turned bitter and there were so many conflicts. In fact, this treaty was based on the spirit of revenge and Germany was forced to sign the treaty. So this treaty was based on revenge. Powerful nations wanted to take revenge on Germany and then Germany was forced to sign the treaty. All the German colonies were forcibly taken away from her and she was divided into two parts for the benefit of Poland. Then Germany had so many colonies. All these colonies were forcibly taken away and Germany was divided into two parts that was beneficial for Poland. Then she was burdened with a huge war indemnity which she could never pay as the compensation of war because Germany was found guilty of aggression. So Germany, the powerful nations burdened Germany with such a huge amount as war indemnity as the compensation of war. Then Germany was not able to pay such a huge amount. This humiliation gave rise to the spirit of revenge and Germany started looking for an opportunity to do away with the harsh treaty. Then it was a humiliation. Altogether, Germany was humiliated by the powerful nations. And then there was spirit of revenge and Germany started looking for a suitable opportunity to get away with this humiliating treaty, with this harsh treaty. But this was not possible without an aggressive policy. But it was very difficult to get away with this with the treaty. It was made possible. It is possible only through aggression and armaments. Hence, the war became inevitable. So, second cause, rise of fascism and Nazism. The rise of extreme nationalism in Italy in the form of fascism under the leadership of Mussolini, and in Germany it is called Nazism under the leadership of Hitler, and that led to the Second World War. Italy wanted to revive the glory of Roman Empire and she joined the Anti-Comintern Pact and formed a 10 years alliance with Germany. Then Mussolini established a dictatorship in Italy. He opposed the Treaty of Versailles and Italy demonstrated her imperialistic design by attacking Abyssinia. That means Mussolini went against the Treaty of Versailles and it attacked Abyssinia. The League of Nations failed to take any action against Italy. Then in Germany, Hitler wanted to re-establish the prestige of Germany in the international field because Germany was humiliated in the Treaty of Versailles. So Hitler wanted to re-establish her prestige or re-establish the prestige of Germany in the international field. He floated the military clauses in the Treaty of Versailles. He disregarded the terms military clauses in the Treaty of Versailles. According to the Treaty of Versailles, Germany could not possess more military power. It was restricted. The power of military forces was restricted. But he disregarded. Hitler disregarded that and declared rearmament. He started, Hitler started stockpiling weapons. In 1938, he annexed Austria and dismembered Czechoslovakia. So thus, Mussolini and Hitler drove the countries of the world towards another world war. Policy of appeasement. Appeasement refers to the policy of conciliating an aggressive power at the expense of some other country. Here, aggressive powers were Germany and Italy. It meant accepting the hostile demands of an aggressive nation to gain peace. So here, the powerful nations like Britain and France tried to accept the hostile demands. Hostile demands means unfriendly demands of an aggressive nation, of the aggressive nations here, Germany and Italy, to gain peace. Britain and France followed the policy of appeasement towards dictatorial countries like Germany and Italy because, here Britain and France followed the policy of appeasement towards dictatorial countries like Germany and Italy because they felt that the dictators had real cause of grievance due to the humiliating Treaty of Versailles. Due to the terms of the humiliating Treaty of Versailles, and if their grievances were removed, they would not disturb world peace. So, Britain and France felt that these dictators, means Germany and Italy, had real cause or their grievance was reasonable because they were humiliated by the terms of the Treaty of Versailles. And if their grievance was removed, they will not disturb world peace. So France and Britain allowed their some demands, accepted some demands. Further, they wanted to check the rising tide of communism and Russian Bolshevism. So that time the communism was rising tide of communism and Russian Bolshevism. So they wanted to check that, they wanted to restrict that. Britain and France feared that Germany would divert towards Russian Bolshevism. So Britain and France felt that if they didn't support Germany, then Germany would turn towards German Bolshevism. Therefore, they allowed Germany to rearm and remilitarize the Rhineland and capture Austria and Czechoslovakia. Therefore, Britain and France allowed Germany to have arms and to remilitarize the Rhineland and capture Austria and Czechoslovakia. So, without the Western countries' policy of appeasement, fascism or Nazism could not have survived so long and would not have been able to unleash the Second World War. So, the main cause of the rise of dictatorship or rise of fascism or Nazism was the support of Britain and France. So, without the Western countries' policy of appeasement, this fascism and Nazism would not have survived so long. And because of that only, the Second World War happened. So this appeasement was one of the main causes of Second World War. Japanese invasion of China. Japan's policy of expansion was another cause of the World War. Japan's ambition rose after the First World War. Japan became highly ambitious. She was determined to dominate the Far East. So, in 1931, Japan intervened in Manchuria and, in spite of the League's opposition, occupied it and set up a government there. So, in 1931, Japan invaded Manchuria, and League of Nations opposed it, but they did not pay any attention, and Japan occupied Manchuria and set up a government there. Japan also started an undeclared war against China in 1931. China appealed to the League of Nations to declare sanctions against Japan. China approached the League of Nations, but Britain and France, the leading members of the League, did not pay attention to the appeal. So, China approached League of Nations, but Britain and France were the leading members of the League of Nations. They did not pay any attention to the complaints of China. Japan joined the Berlin-Rome axis to form a Berlin-Rome-Tokyo axis to further its policy of expansion and conquest. Then what Japan did? Japan joined the Berlin-Rome axis, and they formed the Berlin-Rome-Tokyo axis to further its policy of expansion and conquest. And in 1933, Japan left the League of Nations and started occupying the British and American properties in China. Then Japan again, Japan started occupying the properties of America and Britain in China. Britain and France followed a policy of appeasement. They wanted to crush China. That's why Britain and Britain and France followed the policy of appeasement, thinking that the Japanese could be used to weaken China. Powerful nations wanted to weaken China. Britain and France wanted to weaken China using Japan. Thus, a war was inevitable under these circumstances. Failure of the League of Nations. The League of Nations was created after the First World War to prevent future wars. However, the League suffered an early blow when USA did not join the League. USA, the powerful nation, did not join the League. It was a blow to the League of Nations. Even those who joined the League were not interested in the principle of collective security. They wanted to take care of their own security. They were not interested in the collective security. The League of Nations succeeded in allaying the threat of war in cases where the parties were small nations. They could control only small nations, but they did not have any control over powerful nations. The League did nothing when Poland, with the backing of France, seized a part of Lithuania. And there was a threat of war between Italy and Greece. Italy refused to submit to the League's intervention, and the dispute was settled by direct mediation of Great Britain and France. There was a threat of war between Italy and Greece. But Italy did not agree with the intervention. Italy did not agree the League of Nations to interfere. So, the dispute was settled by direct mediation of Great Britain and France. So, thereafter, in every crisis, the League was either defied or ignored. Nobody cared the instructions of the League of Nations. Then, The economic sanctions were of no use against a determined aggressor. So they were least bothered about the economic sanctions and they did not pay any attention. Besides, the League failed to maintain international peace and the countries of Europe lost faith in its usefulness. The League was not powerful to control the nations and they lost the faith. European nations lost the faith in its usefulness. Thereafter, they themselves entered into mutual political and military alliances. So the League was not at all powerful. So all the nations lost faith in the in League of Nations and they started settling their disputes by mutual understanding. The immediate cause of the Second World War, that was Hitler's invasion of Poland. So let's discuss why Hitler invaded Poland, the reasons. First, by the Treaty of Versailles, Germany was divided into two parts in order to give a land route to Poland up to the sea, and the port of Danzig was also given to Poland. Germany was divided into two parts and through Germany, Poland was given a land route till the sea. And the port of Danzig was also given to Poland. Germany wanted to regain her lost territories. Second cause, the city of Danzig was inhabited mainly by Germans. And by occupying Danzig corridor, Germany could connect with East Prussia. And Germany, third cause, Germany signed a non-aggression pact with Russia in August 1939 and Poland was accused of committing atrocities against Germans living there. So Poland was given Danzig and Poland was accused of committing cruelties against German citizens living there. On September 1, 1939, the German armies marched into Poland. Germans wanted to regain their territories. So on September 1st, 1939, German armies marched to Poland. France and Britain gave an ultimatum to Germany, but Germany did not listen. In reply, Germany attacked France. When France and Britain gave warning or ultimatum to Germany, Germany attacked France. On September 3rd, Britain and France declared war on Germany. Thus, the invasion of Poland marked the beginning of the First World War. So that much is enough about the Hitler's invasion of Poland. Then one more thing. There is a dormant period in the Second World War. Sometimes it can be asked for a short question. In spite of the declaration of war, there was little actual fighting for many months. Therefore, the war during this period from September 1939 to April 1940 was dormant. So, which was the dormant period of Second World War? It was the period between 1939 and 1940 because there was no actual fighting. After the declaration of war, there was no actual fighting for so many months in this period between 1939 and 1940. So that was the dormant period of Second World War. Now we have to discuss the attack on Pearl Harbor. America followed a policy of strict neutrality. America did not want to take part in war. So America had followed a policy of neutrality. But the American Congress decided to lend or lease armaments to Britain and China because their defense was vital to the defense of the United States. America did not take part in war, but it helped Britain and China because by lending arms, or the arms were given on lease to China and Britain, because their defense was vital. Their defense was important to the defense of the United States. The only military force Japan had to fear was the US Pacific Fleet based at the Pearl Harbor in Hawaii. Japan was very powerful, but they were scared of the US Pacific Fleet based at Pearl Harbor in Hawaii. On December 7, 1941, Japan, under the premiership of General Tojo, ordered a surprise aerial attack on the Pearl Harbor. Then, on December 7, 1941, Japan has decided to attack Pearl Harbor under the generalship of General Tojo, under the leadership of General Tojo. And it was an aerial attack from air. They attacked by air. Then the battleships were sunk and the important airfields were destroyed. They destroyed everything. Battleships were sunk and the airfields were attacked. The airfields were destroyed. Then 3,700 people were killed. But the Japanese made two major mistakes, crucial mistakes. Which were the two crucial mistakes made by the Japanese troop? They did not destroy the ship repair facilities at the base, or they did not seek out to destroy the US carriers. So US has the capacity to repair the ship, and they had very powerful carriers. As a result, most of the ships that were damaged were soon back in action. America was very powerful. They could repair the ships very fast. So these two were the mistakes, crucial mistakes done by the Japanese troop. One, they did not destroy the ship repair facilities. And second, they did not seek out to destroy the US carriers. Bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. It should be mentioned briefly. So I am making it short, but I'll include the important points. The Americans started their offensive against Japan to liberate the islands in the Southwest Pacific. At first, America was neutral, but Japan attacked the Pearl Harbor. So the America became offensive, and they started using their offensive mechanism against Japan to liberate the islands in the Southwest Pacific. The American Navy and Air Force destroyed the Japanese fleet, but still Japan was not ready to withdraw. They occupied in China. They strongly established in China, Manchuria, and other places. In 1945, Japanese in the Philippines formed a special force called kamikaze, that is a suicidal force. Then suicide air corps. Young Japanese pilots steered an explosive-laden plane into the side or deck of American ship. And then America has decided to use the most deadly weapon, the atom bomb. After much debate, the decision to use the atom bomb was taken. Days before the first bomb was dropped on Japan, American planes dropped leaflets warning about the deadly weapon and urging the Japanese people and government to end the fighting. So America spread awareness by dropping leaflets warning the destruction of about the deadly weapon. But Japan was not ready to withdraw. Japan was so stubborn and they continued fighting. On August 6, 1945, the first atomic bomb ever to be used on humans was dropped on Hiroshima. So, August 6, 1945, America dropped the first atom bomb on Hiroshima. It destroyed half of the city, killing thousands of people. Despite the terrible destruction, the Japanese still refused to surrender. So there was a severe destruction, but still Japan did not surrender. On August 9, that is after 3 days, on August 9, 1945, another bomb was dropped on Nagasaki. On September 2, 1945, Japan surrendered unconditionally. After 6 long years, World War II was over. So when Japan surrendered, after so much of destruction, the Second World War came to an end. Consequences of the Second World War. Defeat of the Axis powers. Up to the middle of 1942, the Axis powers are Germany, Italy and Japan. So up to the middle of 1942, these Axis powers met with remarkable success. They were successful and captured large territories of Europe, Africa and Asia. But by the end of 1942, the tide began to turn against the Axis powers. Then it was reversed. In November 1942, the Allied forces are Britain, France, the Soviet Union and the USA. They recaptured, the Allied forces recaptured African territories lost by France. This was followed by their victory over Italy and Germany. Then, after the defeat of Germany, the Allied powers turned their attention towards Japan, and then the USA dropped bombs in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and finally Japan offered to surrender on the terms of Potsdam Declaration, and the war came to an end. After the Second World War, the Axis powers had to face the following consequences. First, at the end of World War II, Germany was divided into 2 zones, each zone under the army of each of the Allied powers. So Germany was divided into 2 zones and each zone was under the Allied powers. Then the Federal Republic of Germany. So Germany was divided into 2. One was the Federal Republic of Germany, that is FRG. That is commonly known as West Germany, was administered by UK, France and the US, with Bonn as the capital. Then the second zone was the German Democratic Republic, that is GDR, known as East Germany, was administered by the Soviet Union with East Berlin as the capital. Japan and Italy also became very weak. Unlike Germany, they were not divided into zones to be governed by conquering forces. The American army was to occupy Japan until 1952. Formation of the UN. The horrors of the 2 world wars and the failure of the League of Nations led to a meeting of the Big Three. Who are the Big Three? Roosevelt, President of the USA, Churchill, Prime Minister of Britain, and Stalin, Premier of the USSR, at Yalta. They have decided to have a meeting at Yalta in February 1945. They resolved to convene a conference. They have decided to conduct a conference of the representatives of all the nations at San Francisco to draw up the Charter of the United Nations. This led to the establishment of the United Nations Organization on October 24, 1945. Cold War. During the Second World War, the USA and the Soviet Union fought together in cooperation with each other. However, towards the end of the war, the apparent harmony between the USA and the Soviet Union declined, and old suspicion and ideological differences came to the forefront. So during the Second World War, they fought together. The USA and the Soviet Union fought together. But towards the end of the war, their harmony declined, their friendship declined, and the old suspicion, they started doubting each other. Old suspicion and ideological differences came to the forefront. Though both the countries did not engage in actual fight against each other, they did not fight with each other, but there was a state of extreme political tension between the two countries. There was a political tension between the two countries. The state of tension between countries in which each side adopted policies designed to strengthen itself and weaken the other without armed conflict. It is known as the Cold War. They were planning against each other. Each country wanted to strengthen itself and to weaken the other. And this led to the division of the world into two power blocks. Some countries joined with USA and some countries joined with the Soviet Union. And one bloc was led by the USA and the other by the erstwhile USSR. And one bloc was led by USA and the other was led by USSR. So, one bloc is called the Democratic and Capitalist bloc. The bloc led by the USA. The bloc led by the USA is called the Democratic and Capitalistic bloc. And the other bloc led by the USSR is called the Communist bloc, called the Eastern bloc or the Soviet bloc, believed in communism based on Marxist theory. So the world was divided into two blocks. First is the Democratic and Capitalist bloc led by USA and the Communist bloc led by USSR. That's all. If you like this video, please like, share and subscribe. Thank you for watching. God bless.